is my honor right now to introduce a panel of my friends that are, I was just thinking as you were wrapping up that this is like the perfect end to a perfect day. Because it's been a fabulous day with General Radke and General Alexander and Secretary Gertz and Alex Wang and all of them. They've just been so insightful. Have you found it insightful?
Yeah, kind of blown away.
Me too. But then again, I'm blown away. But every it seems like every event just gets better and better. So I'm thankful. But the name of this panel, it's a roundtable. So there's quite a few of them going to be on here, and it's going to be we had a panel the other day. And I said, I wish you guys could talk the entire day. They were red hot, on fire, ready to change the DoD.
I know you're excited about this.
I'm very excited, and I'm honored to welcome them. And this is a roundtable innovation that unlocks the future. So if I wanted to bring on Dolores Kuchina, Trish Marinelli, she is the director of DEF, Jen Sovada, Alex Goldberg, Heather Richman, and Jack Ryan. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to have you. You guys are going to rock it. So I'll go ahead and let you guys take it over.
I am super excited to be here as well, but I need yes, thank you to start my video. Perfect.
Sorry, Trish.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Michelle. I'm really excited about this panel. I'm Dolores Kuchina. I am with DEF and I'm also with GMU. I wanted to do just a quick run around of everybody on the panel, just to give your name, who you're with, and just do a brief introduction if you want to, so everyone is familiar with who you are in case they don't know your name already. Trish, you want to kick us off?
I sure will. Hi, everybody. I'm the executive director of the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. Super excited to be here with friends and colleagues, both new and old, and to be representing the virtuous insurgency, new swag of the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. Thanks, Dolores.
Heather, you want to go next?
I'm happy to. Hi, guys. Heather Richman. Based out here in Palo Alto, California. Well, I'm sitting in a closet right now in Washington, D.C., so don't judge me. I'm working at, I'll find you. I'm working with BMNT right now as my day job, but I also run something called the Defense Investor Network out here in Palo Alto, where we really work to bring the private capital side to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. Jen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Sovada. I am the chairman of the board for Defense Entrepreneurs Forum and also work at Sandbox, which is a quantum information sciences company where I'm the head of the federal subsidiary.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Jack?
Hey, Dolores, thanks. Michelle, good to see you again today. Always a pleasure working with the America's Future Series. So Jack Ryan, I work with FedTech. I manage their Applied Cyber Accelerator program. So if you're dealing with Army Applied Cyber, you will see me at some point. So that's a day job, night job, or evening job, or other free time job is Expeditionary Ventures with Graham Plaster and Nick Breedlove. We spoke about that earlier today. And then I also run Defense Entrepreneurs Forum here in Austin, and I try to connect all the pieces here within the innovation space. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack. And Lieutenant Colonel Alex Goldberg.
Yeah, appreciate it. One, it's actually a pretty awesome honor to be on the same panel with Heather and Jen and Jack. Know you guys extremely well, and obviously know you guys and the impact that you guys have had. So one, thank you. Two, so I'm the Austin lead for the Defense Innovation Unit, which is the Secretary of Defense's Innovation Unit to help accelerate the adoption of commercial technology. So yeah, happy to take the conversation anywhere this goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for the introductions. We'll jump right in. But the first question that I have for the panel is, how can the government and industry leverage DIU, DARPA, DAF, INSIN, and similar type of agencies and organizations to help overcome barriers of entry?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll just jump in here. To answer that question, let me provide a little bit of context to many of the people in the audience of why this even matters. Why does the DoDX ecosystem even exist? And part of it is, from 5 years ago when Secretary Carter created the Defense Innovation Unit under the Secretary of Defense, there's this thing that keeps them up at night. It still does. It still does for all of our secretaries and many of the folks that are in it. You see events that are taking place currently in Russia, events in Taiwan and China are not too far in the distance. The short of the long is we are not moving fast enough. We're not moving fast enough in autonomy, AI, cyber, hypersonics, counter hypersonics, space. And a part of this is, so how do we do that? And all of these DoD innovation units, whether it be from DARPA in helping create and foster technology coming out of our academia and FFRDCs, but now more than ever, whereas back in the 50s, for every $1 in research and engineering dollar we had, industry maybe had 50 cents. Now, for every $1 we have, industry has $11. And so how do we incentivize them? How do we leverage everything that is happening on the commercial sector, specifically around where DIU cares about, and where now Secretary Xu just created her 14-point strategy. There's 14 key technologies that she focuses on. 13 of these are dual-use technologies. In DIU, we focus on autonomy, AI, cyber, space, human systems, and now our newest portfolio is around advanced energy. These are areas where it's not even just like 11 to 1, it's like $100 to 1 in what we are spending in R&D. Right now, if you look at, contextually around 2028, 2029, the GDP of China surpasses the United States. Their military budget will be larger. Their R&D budget will be larger. 40% of all STEM graduates will come from China, only 3.6% from the United States. What works today will not work tomorrow, right? And we have to do things faster, cheaper, better. And historically, we had not had to, but now these are not just near peer competitors, they are peer competitors. And so where the Defense Innovation Unit comes in, right, we accelerate DoD adoption of commercial technology. We work with all the venture capital, private equity communities. We're able to find a lot of the companies that are in stealth mode and historically had not wanted to work with the DoD. We try to take and transform some of that military capability and add capacity, and then strengthening our national security innovation base. Now, DIU has 3 particular arms, but I'll start with the ways left of scale on the TRL. Look, if you're working on basic, fundamental, and applied research that is absolutely transformative, DARPA is where you want to go, right? If it is in this TRL 5 to 7, right, you've proven out the basic, physics, and now you're trying to transition. This is where the Rapid Technology Office is going to come in. Or DIU, right? We are composed of 3 organizations: NSIN, the National Security Innovation Network, which we leverage FFRDCs in academia to help solve problems. We have NSIC, which is the National Security Innovation Capital Fund, where we invest in hardware, not software, hardware that is pre-revenue, right? Most of these innovation pots are looking like, post-revenue. No, this is pre-revenue hardware, TRL 5 to 7, to cross that valley of the shadow of death between fundamental technology and actually creating a thing. And then you have DIU, which is helping transform, right, and scale and transition these technologies to programs of record. So NSIN is NSIN.us. You have NSIC, which is NSIC.mil, and then you have DIU, which is DIU.mil. And you could look at all of these solicitations and programming that are available, funding, to help your company, depending upon what stage you're in, to help you get from 0 to 1, so we can actually help modernize the country a little bit faster. Hopefully that provided a little bit of context to get things kicked off.
Yeah, no, I think you provided a lot of really good context, and I want to hear a little bit from Jen and Trish regarding DEF and Heather as to how, how venture capital firms and how her agency also looks at these types of problems, especially as we're looking at some of the studies that have been done about barriers of entry. Like Public Spend Forum has done a study a couple of years ago. And a lot of it has discussed, perceptions of industry as it goes with the government and how the government is addressing those perceptions of issues and the barriers. And so how, Trish, Jen, whichever one wants to go first, how do you feel like, these agencies help break down those barriers, or how do they address them as new barriers are coming up and new concerns are coming up?
Well, I feel like I should give the floor to Jen because, first of all, she's the chairman of our board and she is a boss in her own right in many, many ways. So I will actually turn the floor over to Jen, but I have some exciting things to talk about from the deaf corner of the world and how we can break down those barriers.
Yeah, thanks, Trish. I think it's a really interesting problem because we've been studying it for a very long time, and we've addressed a lot of the issues openly in forums like this. But where we lack a little bit of momentum is actually putting dollars to the organizations that are trying to make the difference. And I think that, from the perspective of looking at it from the DoD or other parts of the intelligence community, other parts of the federal government, is looking at how do they develop the ability to fund these organizations and the projects that they're doing. For example, In-Q-Tel has their work program where they have different parts of the intelligence community provide money to them, and then they can create programs that are collaborative across intelligence community partners that can get after some of their unique circumstances and problems. The Air Force is the only service that actually provides money to In-Q-Tel to work through projects and programs. It'd be really interesting if we started to look at that in other parts of this ecosystem to say, hey, I'll put in seed money from the DoD, and then maybe venture capital puts in seed money or something else that would create a collaborative program that isn't necessarily focused on one service's need or OTA or something else that goes out there. From the perspective of DEF and the ecosystem that exists there, I think that one of the things that it does well is that it connects people, it connects companies, it connects government with the private sector to build an ecosystem that understands the problems and then sees ways to access solutions that might not normally be understood or known. And Trish, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks so much. So I'm glad that Stoichi took the kind of lineage between the Office of the Secretary of Defense through R&E to DIU and Ensign, because that is near and dear to my heart. It's a conversation I love to have. But what we do at the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, for those of you who are kind of new and just touching it for the first time, is we inspire, connect, and empower. And those sound like lofty goals, but here's the deal. And I'm going to steal actually the verbiage from Patrick Edwards, which I talked to last week. And he said DEF is a watering hole for entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and innovators. So watering hole actually kind of, draws up two different images. And both of them are really important if you're going to be an innovator in the Department of Defense, right? The first is like, hey, let's get together. Let's be comfortable. Let's enjoy ourselves outside of work with our beverage of choice. Let's hit the watering hole. Let's exchange ideas without fear of how they're going to be received or how people might consider they're going to be. So there's this really welcoming, friendly, engulfing watering hole that all of us kind of want to, right? We want to go to somewhere where everybody knows our name, right? Like we walk in and we're like, hey, Heather Joe, oh, it's so great to be here. Let's take over the world. So there's that. But if you're an innovator inside the Defense Department, it's almost the second version of the watering hole, right? Like imagine the savannah in Africa where there's one well of fresh water and both prey and predator are like creeping up on it because they need this water to live. Innovators need to be able to create to live. I mean, that if it's innovator, entrepreneur, intrapreneur, we need to do it. And in the Defense Department, it's a dangerous game to like creep up there and get that, well of refreshment and then be able to turn around and give good things back to that community or that environment or ecosystem around us. So DEF offers that watering hole, and it's super important, because there are good ideas that happen at the speed of collaboration that outpace the pace of bureaucracy. And it's super important for those two things to meet up, and for people who are committed to national security to take those good ideas, capitalize on them, refine them, and take them back into the workplace for the benefit of national security.
Thank you, Trish. Heather, did you have anything to add?
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Trish, you're so much energy. I love it. And Alex, great points. Thank you for setting the stage there. I will add a little bit of a kind of a venture capital component to it. And I think Alex said something really important about stealth mode companies. It's really interesting. When we're trying to identify world-class teams, world-class capabilities, typically the folks on the private capital side see those first. And they usually see them, a year to 2 years, 18 to 24 months before they come out of stealth mode. And so I think as we sometimes struggle with the various timelines between our two worlds, I think that's going to be a really important piece of this. I think getting, as Trish mentioned, getting these worlds constantly communicating with one another, getting the private side people comfortable speaking a bit of a language and learning the language of the DoD and vice versa. I've heard I've heard folks inside DoD say, I feel really stupid talking to investors. I've heard investors say, I feel really stupid talking to people from DoD. My job is basically a translator. I think that's what a lot of us on this panel do a lot of. And so I think getting over that, this isn't about us. This is about feeling stupid. It's about, getting capabilities into the hands of our warfighters as quickly as possible. Alex also mentioned, speed and faster, and people will oftentimes say, why do, startups in the private side grow faster, build faster, all of that. And I think there's a kind of a joke that it's not a joke. I hear all the time from folks at DoD, we can't pick winners. All we try to do in Silicon Valley is pick winners. And we need to be, communicating and signaling to one another, what sorts of capabilities do you guys need? Do we need? And then going back to the investors and saying, what are you seeing? What's out there? Because what they're seeing, like I said, is 18 to 24 months, usually before these companies come out of stealth mode. And so we're, ramping up that timeline. The other thing is when you look at, building out a company, you've got entrepreneurs, you've got investors, you've got mentors, and you've got first customers that all know each other, and they've known each other and built a level of trust for quite some period of time. You've got investors that will fund the same entrepreneurs over and over. Is that fair? Not always. Can we put an end to some of that and get some new folks in there? But those folks also serve as amazing mentors. So time and time again, we'll hear, folks doing a startup and say, well, I'm gonna dig in there. I'm gonna figure this out for myself. Oh my gosh, don't reinvent the wheel. Go get some help from those that have come before. But at the same side, folks inside of the DoD who know how to operate, know how to navigate, know how to get things, when we find a capability that's real and that is a game changer, how do we get that, like I said, through transition? And actually was meeting this morning with an investor from a prime, and that's, they are, I think, a key component to this as well. That's not something that everyone in the Valley likes to talk about, but I think taking a holistic approach to this, but also getting those trusted networks of people, making sure that the capital is also trusted and clean, I think is another part we can get to if we have time. But I think, we joke that in the Valley, that innovation isn't fair. And I know that government is different and we have to approach it differently, but I think we need to be far more coordinated in order to move faster.
Yeah, and just real quick, I just want to piggyback on what Heather just said there about, picking winners. When venture capital is investing hundreds of millions of dollars in a company, look, the DoD would be smart to be able to leverage what they are doing and how they're moving at the speed of business to buying down a lot of the risk versus building it from scratch, right? And that is the intent. A lot of the software development cycles of these technologies, by the time we even write the requirements, they're already on to the next version, right? Let alone getting the acquisition process to acquire the technology. By the time we get it, it is already out of date. So there's this concept of fast follower that our director, right, Mike Brown, who is the director of the Defense Innovation Unit, has this concept of this fast follower. So absolutely, Heather. I mean, there's a fine line between picking winners or not, but when you see a trend going in a certain way and a company is just far outpacing what we are in the DoD and the rest of the market, and you see the other venture capital, private equity putting in their own skin in the game, it behooves us to also be able to, at its very early stage, when they're in that Series A, Series B, when they still have the ability to actually modify their capability to meet our dual use need, that's our really sweet spot. If we wait until they're a Series C or D and you're producing Apple and you're creating hundreds of millions of iPhones, and we go, look, we're the DoD, we're going to buy 3 million, we want you to add these new sensors, they laugh at us, right? And we can't get the capability. So we need to find them right in that sweet spot. So absolutely, Heather. I mean, there is that fine balance, and I think we're starting to learn where that is.
Really great answers. And I think it reminds me of an episode of a podcast that I listened to recently. I don't know if anybody else listens to Acquisition Talk on this panel, but the episode was specific to DoD, Silicon Valley, and looking at how the two really address the question of dual use technology, but also how do they invest in these organizations and how do they select the winners? And, there was within the podcast, they did discuss this whole spray and pray method versus venture capital firms really focusing on what works and what they know is a great way to invest in organizations, and also reading the signals. So my last question for the panel, because I think this is going to be the best discussion, what are the demand signals for DoD or venture capital firms that dual use organizations need to be aware of, or any emerging tech company that needs to be aware of as they're entering the market to know, hey, am I a viable technology for the government? Am I a viable technology for a venture capital firm? What should I be looking for? Heather, Jack, either one can start.
Yeah, I mean, if they're looking to go to the DoD side, SBIR is, or going after STTR. That's kind of your first place that you could look for to get that demand signal or the official demand signal. So that's where a lot of companies start. That's not to say it's the only place. DIU can do those buys off the shelf and bring in technology that may not have known that it had something that was applicable to the DoD or national security. So I think those are some good starting points. Another thing is getting involved with groups like Defense Entrepreneurs Forum or AFS or Defense Investors Network. Like that's where you can get those experts that can say, hey, what are the true demand signals? Like I know I get this demand signal, they put out an SBIR topic, I chase it, it goes nowhere. Getting these experts on board at an earlier stage when you're going through this is so critical. Like running FedTech's accelerator program, I don't want to say I'm shocked, but I want to see a better process for having a level of understanding when these companies come through the door for the first time. That hopefully they have a better understanding before they have to go through an accelerator. And that's just a few companies that get the opportunity to go through an accelerator to get handheld through the process. So I know on the Army side, they're taking this pretty seriously, and I'll be able to talk about it more next month, but they're in the process of standing up their transition broker teams. And this is going to be a kind of a three-legged stool, if you will, where the Army is going to be not just throwing out the demand signals of money, but actually kind of hand-holding companies through the process, where they're going to have somebody on the team that's focused on business, one that's focused on acquisitions, and the last person is on the technology. So you're going to have these experts at the phase 1 and phase 2 level on the Army that are going to be dedicated to companies coming through the SBIR process. So more of that's being fleshed out. We'll see that in the next couple months coming out. But as far as putting out demand signals, it won't just be these, here's a couple bucks, good luck on the other side. It'll be here's some money, but you know what, I'm going to walk you through. So I'm hopeful in seeing that, but I would encourage, people listening, if you're wanting to get involved with the DoD and start selling your technology, reach out to Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, America's Future Series, Defense Investor Networks, these groups of people that, I look at the screen here and I see each one of us probably has 2 to 3 jobs, that we're dealing with during the daytime and nighttime focused on this community. We live and breathe it. Reach out to these types of groups because we can be that Sherpa, if you will, to bring you through the process.
I would love to jump in here if that's okay. I love everything that Jack is saying, and I would like to sort of plus one it and say that SBIRs are a great way to get in, but also look at OTAs, BAAs, and commercial solutions offerings because they're very tailorable. Sometimes SBIRs there can be a topic for years that may not be included in what you're doing, but there might be other ones that have much more malleable topics that you could put a small, seed funding like 200K, 100K into to try to do something. And then from Jack's point about finding the organizations, also look for people on LinkedIn who are talking about this on a regular basis and ask them for advice. Don't automatically go to pay them, but ask them for advice because people want new technology in the space. And if you find what they provide for you to be valuable, then maybe consider giving them some stock or, giving them an advisor position on a board or doing something that helps to build your ecosystem and give you access to more people in the Department of Defense and the federal space overall.
I don't know if, Heather, do you want to jump in? I'm not sure if you're having technical difficulties or. Okay.
There's a light that you have to make it stay on.
Okay, perfect.
You know what's going on, yeah. No, I agree so much. And I think the approach, I think a lot of times we take some of these challenges and look at it from the DoD side out. And so I just want to make sure we're also looking at it from the private capital side in. And that's kind of been my grand scheme as far as setting up something called the Defense Investor Network, which folks may or may not be aware of. It's not a thing. It's like Fight Club. We don't have a website. We don't have a newsletter. It's about 200 investors that get together once a month. We know they're clean, trusted capital. And the idea is that if we are signaling to them and more than just, we need AI, let's be a little more specific, but really know some of the problem areas and the problems that are trying to be solved. I just selfishly have, used them as my eyes and ears for the last many, many years. And so the more that we can get comfortable with. And I briefly touched on something around trusted capital. And I think that's something that at the OSD level is they're kind of working through about what that should look like. But just for all those out there, both investors and entrepreneurs, making sure you know where your money's coming from, making sure it's clean. There's some very interesting things going on in the world right now. And it's going to be, I think those companies that have taken money from certain, we like to call them countries of special concern, are going to hit some roadblocks. And so we also can provide a solution for that. But I think just being eyes wide open about that, talking to your investors. Separately, we're trying to also do that. I've been an entrepreneur and tried to raise money and have raised money, and it's a really awkward place for an entrepreneur to be. So just know that there are folks out there, being one of us, who can help with some of those conversations. But just eyes wide open, and on the investor side, just the cleaner that your funds are, the faster we're going to be able to get this stuff rolling. So you making sure that we're creating kind of a trusted ecosystem so that some of these investors can be privy to more sensitive information, which I know is a challenge. You might be surprised. We actually hosted an event with CIA Labs, and we had about 50 investors that had clearances. So they are out there. So if we need to enable some of that, that's something that we can help do as well. But I tell you, sitting out in Silicon Valley, there's been a huge tipping point. Defense isn't a bad word anymore. My favorite investors are those that remind me that Silicon Valley was actually started to create DoD capabilities and DoD resources. And so I like to shame them a little bit. Not asking you to do good for your country, just asking not to do bad for your country. And I think making sure that pots of money are real and they're clean, and that they're also communicating that with mission critical capabilities so that we don't get stuck down the line.
And I'll just add real quick, if everyone wants to look in the chat, I know we tend to throw a lot of acronyms around, as we do in the military and in this space. So some of the quick buzzwords that we were kind of throwing out there, I put some context in there for it.
Yeah, and I'm also going to kind of cross-pollinate some of the goodness on this panel. So at BMNT, they have done hacking for different environments for a while. So especially if you're young and up and coming in your career, if you haven't seen hacking for defense, hacking for diplomacy, hacking for homeland security, like check that stuff out, because it's not just about building the next throwable drone. It's actually cool stuff that's taking place and making a change in innovation policy as well, making changes in policies around the Defense Department. And as Stoichi mentioned before, the National Security Innovation Network, or NSIN, is really looking at everything that is at the beginning stages, from the napkin pitch all the way up to I almost might be ready to prototype. Take a look at their programming and see if you can't find an on-ramp to DoD business.
Thank you so much, everyone. I know we only have 3 minutes left, and I think the feedback that you're providing is very valuable, especially all the resources that I see everybody posting to on the side. I wanted to close this out in the last minute or so, just to have everyone maybe give either your favorite inspirational quote or something for people to keep in mind as they're trying to break through, all the noise that they're hearing of what they're supposed to be doing. Or if they have a really cool idea and they want to bring it forth and just want to talk to someone, just give your one-liner of advice. I'll start with Jack, just to close this out. Thank you.
Favorite quote, I would usually have to go with move fast and break things. Now, sometimes I just break things regardless of moving fast, but don't be afraid to, make mistakes. Like when you're moving your technology through time, move quickly, learn fast. That's why I say get involved with these groups, because you're going to spend the time, whether it's 8 to 10 hours learning about a topic to deal with navigating these waters, or you can get with somebody who's been doing this. We keep a pulse, a finger on the pulse of what's going on in this community on a daily basis. We can, the DEF and DIN and all these groups, we can speed up that time frame that you're spending, searching out, oh, what's my next step? So I'd say, move fast, break things, and just get involved.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I will also say for all of those people in the military that are out there, and most of us, the vast majority, choose to serve because they want to have an impact. Innovation is not for the faint of heart in such a bureaucratic organization as the DoD. But that being said, there was a guy named John Boyd, who most people know about the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act. He also had a very famous quote, and it was to be or to do. In life, you're going to have to make a decision Don't rock the boat. Don't change anything. Just toe the line. You won't make a mistake. And you may have an opportunity to be a general. On the other hand, you can actually try to move the ball forward, have an impact. You may break things, just like Ryan, said, just like Jack said. And at the end of the day, at the end of your career, you may have the opportunity to actually move the needle and make an impact and do what you did to serve our nation. So do good anyways, still fight the good fight, and take those ideas, speak truth to power, and it will reward us, significantly at the end.
I'm going to go super quick with saying that I'll pull from Mike Madrid, the previous executive director. Rebellions are built on hope, or ROBA. And, just really keep fighting the good fight, like you said. And for a longer quote, love what Nelson Mandela quoted from Michelle Williamson's Return to Love about how it's your light that empowers other people to step into their light as well.
Okay, I'll go next. I will say that the biggest thing that I want everyone to know is don't get frustrated. Be sure to persevere. People in the private sector in the Silicon Valley space, as well as those in the Department of Defense, don't necessarily know how to talk to each other, but everybody wants to do good and provide value to the mission. So push through those barriers and you'll be able to make a positive outcome.
I'll go next really fast. So innovation at the speed of trust, building trusted relationships, working on those, keeping them lockstep, I think will help us move a lot more quickly. My other favorite is just, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. So don't be afraid to change. Like Jack said, break stuff, throw stuff against the wall. Just start doing it. No more studies, no more working groups. Just start getting stuff done, and we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been an amazing panel. I'm honored to be a part of it. And I hope everyone will see us at the happy hour. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that great conversation. Scott, you, sir?
Well, I tell you what, every time that we are involved in whatever it might be in America's Future Series, I say to myself, okay, what am I going to learn today? And to listen to all these young people that we just heard from, just everybody across the board today, everybody had something unique and something special. And I thought, gee, I never thought of that. It's got I guess I'd point at that quiet wow factor. You go, whoa, I had no idea. And it really, I'm most impressed.
I'm very impressed, and I'm very, we want to bring them on because these are people, as Alex talked about a little bit, that are fighting the good fight, right?
Absolutely.
And so, the best fights are the hardest, and it isn't for the faint of heart. You talk about innovation. Being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
Being an investor is not for the faint of heart, et cetera. But it's important, and it's worth doing. And for this group to try to create an ecosystem and support each other in terms of making it possible for the military and all of our other national security apparatus to have the capabilities that we need to protect our nation. It's worth doing. Now, it has to make sense financially. It has to make sense as a business. They're not going to whatever. Right. But at least to look at these things and to focus on them and to and make that part of your mission, which is to invest in these things, et cetera, where it makes sense, is really important. And every single one of those people are doing the very best they can to try to encourage entrepreneurism, investment, in innovation, and our national security. So I tip my hat to them, and glad to be associated with DEF and the DIU and BMNT and all those folks. And I want to thank Alex and Heather for putting that thing together.
Oh, absolutely. I thought it was great. I really did. And it's so often you wonder about, and I say young people, I don't want to put you and I over that.
Well, they're all younger than us.
But, well, that's what I mean. And it's nice to hear them say, because you sometimes wonder about just the entitlement sometimes that our young generation has, or you see a lot of it now that I never saw it before. But no, not these people.
These are dedicated, selfless people. Yeah.
Yes.